JP and HP casting the mindset change. Wow, please.
Can you guys hear me? At the back. Okay. Turn the top now. Better. Okay. So, you guys had a good break. So first, let me start with a little question. How many of you been using HP practices, extreme programming? Okay. Quite a few. Anyone try coaching XP practices in a few minutes so far? Okay? Okay, awesome. So, some of the points I'm going to talk about today is more about following the mindset change when you're trying to coach. But nevertheless, you can also relate to yourself if you're a practitioner of XP program. So let's get into this discussion, and I'm going to cover these things. So Martin, are we good on the time? I think
yes, we're good on time. 45 minutes from now.
Okay, cool. So here's a small agenda. We're going to talk about. In fact, we're going to debate about this, whether it's a mindset or skill set. A lot of people do have different opinions. And assuming that mindset is the focus of today's discussion, how do we make it happen? And Q&A on that. Okay? So, let's start with this question. What do you guys think? Extreme programming, especially testing and development, versus management, unit testing, those skills. What do you guys think? Is it more of a mindset or a skill set? What does it take to actually apply extreme skills? Combination. Okay. Nice answer. More of a mindset. Do you want to say why? Reasons?
Simply because practices like PDD or any such extreme practice,
Yeah.
a person who codes that way, a person who codes using those practices will code the same way, whether you ask him to code in Pascal or .NET or Java.
Okay.
So it's irrespective.
So you become language agnostic, technology agnostic. Okay. Good. Okay, so I'll capture some of the points. Any other points? So if you say mindset, please say why or otherwise.
He should be courageous to share his code.
Okay. More than sharing, you should have a courage to touch your code. You would have heard about refactoring, like ruthless refactoring by Martin Fowler. The word ruthless actually talks about. Let me ask you this question. So if you're from a programming background, how many of you have the courage to go and touch any part of your code and do a ruthless refactoring? Okay, we have Sanjay, we have a couple of guys. Good. So I think one of the tenets of XP is to actually get this confidence on our application and about ourselves. Okay, so any other questions? Any other thoughts around whether it's a mindset or a skill set? Or I'm trying to
It's mostly mindset. For example, in case of PAD, this mindset is still writing similar code, you are using JUnit, similar skills, but the way you do it, test, develop and refactor cycle.
Right.
So this style is changing.
Sure.
Slightly different approach, mindset.
Sure.
For continuous integration, it might be a little bit of skill set because they're using new technologies. If you have not been using say Jenkins or something else, it might require some new skills.
Right.
But again, it's about mindset also.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the first point is very valid because especially those who know PDD, right? A lot of people who do not understand that it's more of a mindset. They think that PDD is nothing but certain tools and technology. In fact, they think PDD itself is a technology or a tool, which is actually not true because most of you who have done PDD will understand that it's a design approach. In fact, it's not even a development, it's a design approach. Yeah. So someone has
mindset more basis. Skill set right. Sure. But when we are talking about the mindset, actually we are trying to make sure that we are getting out of code. Yeah. Implementation is anyway it's the primary code. Sure. We are getting out of our code that source and that possible when we have that.
Okay, sure. Good point. So caring about our code and also caring about the value delivered. So now, what I would like to do is, I'm going to prove that it is more of a mindset by connecting XP and the other things like Agile and Scrum. Because if you closely examine the way XP came into the picture, again, that even before Scrum became popular, XP, because they all were derived from a similar mindset, Agile mindset. So let's get there. Okay, maybe before I jump into, let's watch a video, a small video, 4 minutes video. It talks about what does it take to change, or how do you overcome resistance to change, and then we get it. So I think I'll play this video. Yes. Okay. So the audio we have blocked. Audio connected, right? We need to do the duplication. Extended. Windows error. Okay.
Come on, make a shape. We've all experienced change of some sort in our lives. It's not always something we like or want, but sometimes it is necessary. Here's an example. Well, go on, make a shape.
What do you need? Yeah, it's just very visible. Yeah.
We've all experienced change of some sort in our lives. It's not always something we like or want, but sometimes it is necessary. Here's an example. Well, go on, make a shape. No, something less abstract. No, something less silly. Give us something simple. Much better, well done. Now, this little guy represents any average person. Let's see what happens when we change the situation. Go on then, try to get through. I'll give you a hint. You'll never reach a bright future without making a change. Sometimes we want other people to change, but they resist. Often incentives are used to overcome this. Let's take a look. As we see, incentives are useful, but realistically don't always work. Individuals have different needs and motivations that should be considered. Forcing change is never going to give you the desired win-win outcome. Consider why Blue doesn't want to change. We can do that by using a very simple matrix. The positive of changing is a bright future, but what if Blue can't relate to this concept? What happens if we make it more personal? Blue, you will be a star. It's okay, we aren't finished yet. Now, what are the negatives related to change? stop there. Let's also look at the positives and negatives of not changing. Positives of not changing is that you get to stay a square. And you love being a square. But is being a square really that great? You have sharp edges and you're really slow compared to, let's say, a circle. Great, guys. I'm glad you could all agree. Enjoy your bright future. Overcoming resistance to change? Isn't it obvious?
Okay.
Jimmy, how damage positive? Space bars.
Okay. Okay, good. Great. So, the reason why I'm showing this video is to let you guys know that causing the change takes a lot of techniques, strategic approach. Now, if you're talking about causing the XP mindset for XP to be changed, it's one thing to do when you're dealing with one or two people, and it's another thing when you're trying to do across the organization. Right? So, I'm going to just share a little bit of my experience of what it takes to drive across an organization or multiple people, and the same fundamental principle that we just explained in the video. If you don't address to what's in it for me, the individuals, as well as the teams, you can't really make the change happen. So based on that, I just classify this topic into three aspects. Okay. So whenever we're talking about XP, extreme programming practices, obviously we need to show the relevance. How is it relevant to whatever we are doing? We are fine with Agile, we are fine with Scrum, right? Unless we talk about its relevance, we're not going to go ahead. And also, once we, let's say, we make things relevant, but when it comes to the implementation, there is a lot of challenges, right? So, how do we really go about analyzing those challenges, and how do we segregate the root causes, symptoms, and things like that, right? And also about, let's say we know the different challenges, we have the relevance, but still, I want to be a programmer, I want to be just a regular developer, right? TDD, changing the mindset is very, very difficult. So how do you influence the thought process of people which you're trying to get into XP program? So those are the three areas, and we'll get into each one of them very quickly. So as far as conveying the relevance is concerned, if you're working or driving any large-scale transformation which is using Agile, obviously you would be using a lot of principles from Agile and lean thinking from the thought process point of view. But then concrete practices could be Scrum or even extreme programming or a combination of them. Or sometimes people also use Kanban based on the lean principles. Right? Now you have to find a way to explain how they are all related and how especially XP is related to them. Otherwise people don't see the relevance. Okay. Now one of the easier ways to find that relevance is this lean principle called build quality in. Any guesses what this could be? Phrase could be build quality in.
Quality is not something comes afterwards. It's
sure.
in the beginning.
Right on the point. So in the traditional process of waterfall, I mean, you know that those steps and qualities after the fact. Even in Scrum, for example, let's say without XP, people tend to think that quality is at the end of the sprint. Sometimes it slips. So that means you allow the defects to escape your sprint boundaries. That is still because of this mindset that quality is at the end of the sprint, or towards the end of the sprint. Now, people talk about working together, testers and programmers, irrespective of what role you're in, you are an Agile developer working together from the beginning, and all those things are theory if you don't have a mechanism to enable that parallel work.
I'd like to add
yes.
this point. In software world, quality is seen as equivalent to testing.
Yep.
But testing is actually verification of quality. Quality is being inbuilt while the development is in the software.
Sure. So this is from we have the lean people, Mary Tom Boston. In that book, we have this build quality principle, which actually means this. we have to have a mistake-proof process. That means you don't even allow people to make a mistake in the first place. Because the traditional quality is you allow the defects to happen and then try to verify and probably try to fix. Now, can we have a mechanism where we can even avoid proactively getting into mistakes? And nevertheless, anyway, the bugs are going to be there because we have this famous Newton's law. Anyone knows about the Newton's law from the bugs point of view? Where there is a code, there is a defect. That's nice. Probably this is the 6th Newton's law. The 5th one was bugs can neither be created nor be destroyed. You can only be transformed from one form to another.
Not Newton's.
I'm just saying, in the software community world, people call it as, when I heard it as sure. Good. So that's the thing, that's the reality. Bugs will be there, but how about preventing them at any point of time? So the real meaning of this sentence is, at any point of time, do we have a mechanism to know what we have done and the quality of it? For example, you could have just checked in a couple of lines of code, can we get some feedback? Or you've just implemented one of the acceptance criteria and can we get some feedback for it, right? Or the story, or whatever work we do, not necessarily coding, do we have a mechanism to know what we have done, is it good or bad? That's called having a mistake-proof process, okay, building such thing. And then obviously to ensure that it is maintained in a consistent manner, we need to have a mechanism to integrate quite often and take the feedback, right? Integrate early and often. And also have a culture of not tolerating the difference. Have a culture of not allowing a bug which is just going in front of my eyes. Right? I know that there is a nice bug, I'm nicely packaging it and passing it into the next sprint. Now, so having a culture of not tolerating can enable us to build quality. So build quality in other words means we have a mechanism where we can build the quality throughout the process, throughout the life cycle of SDS. Okay, that's one of the lead principles. Now, whatever Agile initiative we are doing, whatever is the flavor of Agile we are using, if you really care about quality, we need to have this build quality mechanism, and that's where XP comes handy. Okay, especially if you've used both Scrum and XP in combination, you would have also realized that XP also has a little bit of planning game and other stuff like something related to process and working together. But if you are using in combination, if you've chosen to use Scrum from the process point of view, then you would only pick and choose some of the relevant engineering practices from XP to add to the quality, to build quality into the system. If you're using XP alone, yes, people use all the 12 principles of XP. Okay. So that's the relationship. Now, the other way of talking about the relevance of XP practices is about this feedback. Some of you would have seen this. So the whole Scrum, the crux of Scrum is about expecting that and getting a feedback. Now, if you really see here, the release plan, typically happens once in a quarter and things like that. Maybe it's in months, and then iteration every week you get the feedback through your ceremonies and maybe some acceptance testing which happens towards the end. Daily stand-up you get the feedback as short as 1 day. And then when you get into the XP practices, your feedback cycle starts reducing. The pair negotiation, unit testing, feedback comes in minutes. Pair programming is live feedback. When you're working in a pair mode, you are getting a live feedback, you're also incorporating it because it's live and navigating, you're working together. So the feedback cycle, the shorter it is, the better it is for our Agile journey and the better it is for our quality. And that is also in line with mistake-proof process. So that's where XP skills fit in this whole of feedback cycle. And that's how they are relevant. Also, the cost of fixing something, right? The cost of fixing a bug. You see here again, the shorter the cycle, the shorter the time in which you get some feedback, and lower is the cost of fixing, right? And if you see this green thing, they're all XP practices. And pair programming, things like that. So the farther you go in this cycle, in this timeline, the cost of defect fixing increases exponentially. This is again from a famous source. So obviously, XP practices are going to help us reduce the cost of fixing, reduce the cost of delaying fixing a bug, and possibly avoid the bug from happening itself, rather than getting into fixing. And the other point is about what's so extreme? Because if you get into coaching mindset about extreme, I mean, people freak out. I mean, I'm a great programmer. I've been programming for many years. What's so cool about extreme? Can you talk about what does that extreme mean for extreme programming? Any ideas?
So it's basically,
Yep.
you start with programming, do everything, and
Sure.
don't do too much of planning, only don't have architecture design upfront.
Sure.
Just what is the mission?
Right. But why do you call it as extreme?
So start with the code
Uh-huh.
and let it fail. So everything you're doing code will talk about code. Problems.
Okay. Some guys also say tests will talk about code. Your tests are the real documentation of your code.
In case of testing, they try to find out whether the practice
Yep.
is good.
Yep.
But do it all the time. Not at time.
Okay. So do it all the time, right? So be religious about it.
Extremely.
Okay.
Sure. If integration is good, do it all the time. If simple design is good, do it all the time.
Okay.
So quite I think you never done that.
Sure. And it's more of a very disciplined approach, and that's one of the ways to reduce extreme.
Yeah. The extreme thing in a software is fail. So start with the fail.
Sure. Start with the fail and
And then you
improve. Very nice thoughts. So if you really hear from some of the industry thought leaders, right? So Ken's basic idea, Ken Beck is the one who invented XP. So his basic idea was to take the observed effective team practices, engineering practices, and push them to the extreme level. For example, so it's not that we've never done code reviews. We were doing it even in the non-agile work, but push it to the extreme level of live code review. Right? That's what is they call it as pair programming. It's like live. Otherwise, traditionally we submit our codes and then wait for someone. Whenever the other person gets an opportunity, he gets to review, and then whenever again the person gets some time, he gives you the feedback. So there is a lot of dealing. There is no live factor. So it's the same example. So testing, so get into the TBD more, and that's why it's actually sort of called as extreme programming. Okay? So that means if you say, if you convey this point that there's nothing rocket science here, whatever good practices you're doing, we're trying to push it a little hard on the extreme side so that you have a mistake-proof process. You have a mechanism to build quality. That means then there is a natural bind. Okay, I don't need a major change in whatever I'm doing. And so let me see how I can push the extreme level. Okay. So at least the mindset, it starts opening. Now, actually to do it, again, there are a lot of hurdles and challenges to get into it. So next is about, okay, this is the doing stage. Okay, I got convinced, I see a relevance. Now, how do I go about doing it? Okay, so you get into a lot of challenges. So I'd like to hear again from people, those who practice, try to practice or try to coach, any challenges that you hear, that you have seen of implementing extreme practices? Yes. Sure. Right.
See, one thing is, like if the team is distributed located,
Yeah.
not in the slow location team.
Okay.
And if whatever demos and practices they are doing, there are a lot of challenges in that.
So for example, how do you do pair programming in a remote manner?
Remote
Okay. Okay. So challenges with the distribution. Okay. That's a real piece. Any other challenges, guys?
Another thing comes from the budgeting perspective. So organizations will have constraints on budgets of having a paired programmer.
Oh, okay. So if you're really specifically talking about pairing, then you get into this question: two people doing the same job, and why should I pay anything? Okay, there are very good statistics to talk about it. Maybe this is a one-liner.
Yeah, I think one of the things that comes to people, including test and development, is to say tests are expensive.
Yeah.
You know, like someone said, investment for pair programming.
Yeah.
It's even for automation, right? The cost of automation. So, okay, first let me push these features,
Yeah.
and I'll give you a sprint separate for automation. So,
Sure.
I think that's also one of the challenges from a business perspective.
But I would disagree that.
I'm just saying the scenarios or the challenges that we're facing.
Right.
Though it is expensive to implement,
Yeah.
okay, fixing it later is double the cost.
No, they missed that point. So, but anyway, that's a valid
Challenge.
challenge. Yeah. Yeah.
Skill set.
Okay, sure. So skill set is a problem. Could be a problem to implement XP. Not many people know about different aspects of the skills.
What is the nature, reserved nature?
Okay, so that's again points of mindset.
It's a space programming.
Personal space, probably people want personal space and they don't want to.
Okay, so that's
Not just the personal space, we cannot do Facebook.
Who is the benefit?
Who is the benefit? Getting the benefit? Okay. So what's the benefit? Right. Any other?
I think with any change, inertia is always a challenge, and
Sure.
extreme, it's extreme inertia.
Sure, extreme inertia. Okay, so for extreme inertia. That's nice, yeah. And that again proves that it's more of a mindset. Any other?
Maybe infrastructure, logistics at times. Because you don't have that convenient area where two people can sit together and raise their desks and stand up and
Co-location and an environment where people can really practice hands-on practice respect. Okay, so space, I just call it as space.
The point of the current school is
So the courage, obviously, if you do this, you get courage, but it's like a chicken egg problem. So, okay. Any other challenge? Right knowledge. Yeah, skills. The right knowledge of the actual technical skills of the Okay. So obviously, because there are too many types of challenges, one size fits all doesn't work. So that's why, as a coach or a person who's driving HP, needs to be aware that there are multiple challenges, and probably mindset is one of the biggest problems. So your approach to solve different things should be strategic in nature, and especially when you're trying to do it at org level. Okay, there are some challenges which are not even in the control of teams, like their org level impediments, the leadership level challenges. The mindset blockers would be at the leaders, not even at the team members. How do you do that? But leaders always want the benefits and fruits of XP, but they're not willing to basically create a space. So that's why even I also try to categorize based on some of my experience of implementing it. So maybe if you treat this as a root, maybe according to me mindset, and then there are tight dependencies on based on your component. Some of the examples where there are multiple layers of the architecture, a lot of dependencies, highly coupled application, implementing XP's features, and okay, come to this point, and not enough tools and infrastructure being present to do the automated testing, things like that. And maybe the infrastructure is there, people don't know how to use it, or people don't know how to write unit tests, for example, right? So I've heard from many architects when getting into some coaching that they've never written unit tests in their lifetime, especially in the embedded domain. Some of them.
what is unit testing? That's the question they asked.
What is unit testing? Yeah, I was surprised many times when I got that question. So definitely it's a combination of these things. So anyone who wants to comment on this one? How process issue can be your hurdles to implement XP?
Group code review. Group code review.
Okay.
Okay, is an XP practice.
Right.
To undertake your
Sure.
understanding.
Sure.
But if you do not do that effectively,
Yeah.
it's a waste.
So it's
That's the process
effectiveness.
issue.
Okay.
I want to relate one of the points that Avinash mentioned, that people just do, or Nagesh mentioned, they just do the retrospective.
Sure.
They don't know what it is. It's called mechanical Scrum, right?
Right.
Or classic Scrum.
Right.
People don't know why they're doing it.
Right.
Is that one of the issue?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's the same thing. I could relate another one. If you try to teach pair programming, for example, initially what you will see is people end up discussing for 45 minutes, and they say, you know what, we used to do this for a couple of hours in the old world, and you call this as like you boxing for 45 minutes and you call this pair programming, right? So people think that pairing means take a story and work together for the entire sprint. That means they spend time together entire sprint, and sometimes they split. I do this part A and part B. And all this misconception about pair programming can be again issues in the real implementation. Okay, so
a couple of other things is basically we don't understand the value of a process.
Yep.
We undertake something
Yep.
and we don't really work towards the results.
Sure.
And that's a value. And secondly, we try to take shortcuts.
Sure.
That's when we don't get value.
Yeah.
When we have something in place, we need to understand ourselves why that has to be done,
Sure.
and to educate the cares on why it is to be done, and we have to analyze the results and continuously work towards process improvements.
Sure.
And
So basically you're saying if you don't pay attention to why XP or why unit testing and things like that, it will again go through the motion, right? For example, you will find, I've even seen some of the guys writing a script to get you 100% code coverage, right? You write a unit test and all you need to do is get the coverage done, and people can write smart scripts to get that. And at least skip everything and only the HTML report you show 100%. They write smart scripts like that. So it's like going through the motion, right? Ineffective stuff. One of the other points I could talk about this is, so anyone has implemented BDD here? Yeah. So you know BDD scenarios, you know when if you ask a team member to write them, they'll start thinking, right? Okay, whatever is the acceptance criteria, there are corresponding, like let's say 3 criteria, 3 scenarios. And then when you start probing, what if this comes as null? What if this is not set? Something like that. Then people start thinking about it. Then you should ask, how do the system behave? And then maybe team members say, I never wondered about this. Is it something that we need to deal with technically, or is it a business decision? So, and then we ask them, okay, go back to the product owner and ask, the product owner, oh, I never thought about this. So it ultimately boils down to the quality of the user story that you write, the clarity, the acceptance criteria, and the possible edge cases. Now, whenever some edge cases happen, how should the system behave? Now, some of them could be business decision. That means in my business, you end like this, or you handle that situation like this. Or as a product owner, I could say, you know what, I'll leave it up to you. Just gracefully end it. You do something about it. Right? So people can't even differentiate whether it's a technical decision or a business decision. And so it boils down to the process, the way sprint planning is happening, the way your grooming is happening, and kind of detailing down on the acceptance criteria for a few chosen stories. Obviously, it's not possible to do it for all of them. That was the old world we were living into. But at least for the handful of items which you want to pick it up in the sprint, can't we be detailed enough so that we can derive right BDD scenarios which will translate to some of the good automated testing. So there is a lot of positive issues that can come on your way to implement it. So as a coach, we need to be aware that there are multiple challenges we need to address them differently. In fact, in one of the XP workshops that I conducted, I kept on telling throughout the 3 days that XP, if this is the issue, I asked them what are common challenges. Every time they say challenges, Scrum Master. Scrum Master. I probably repeated word Scrum Master so many times in an XP workshop, they were wondering, are we in a Scrum workshop or XP workshop? So, because a lot of processes come on your way. Because even if you want to do something and your automation takes a backseat, your product owner does not allow you to have certain engineering items in a healthy ratio, right? Everything boils down to the way the process is getting into sometimes. So now coming to the last section, which is how do you go about influencing the thought process? Any ideas around that? Influencing the thought process of individual. So he or she knows the relevance. And we also understand challenges. That means we know that it's a journey, right? Because if you don't have infrastructure, if you're dealing with a legacy application, it takes time to really implement. We know the benefits, but it's not an easy thing to do. So once we have these 2 things, we still have the mindset problem. So how do you influence it? Any ideas around that?
Show them the value and the benefits.
Show them the value and the benefits.
Okay. Something with lessons learned probably from other projects.
Yeah.
How they've done, or good practices which you commented and have a definition about it. And like suppose sometimes we have been mentioned unit testing, right?
Yeah.
What are the results we are getting on the teams? If we can put a pause.
Okay. So both of them are valid points. So just as a suggestion to that is that you use certain industry standards and models from the thought leaders who talk about it. For example, people talk about pair programming, the cost of engaging 2 people to do the same work. Now there are statistics which say that when you do a pair programming, when you measure your productivity and the cost of doing things will increase by 15%, 1.5, for a benefit of reduction of almost 60% of the bugs. When you present these statistics from the real world, I think management will start thinking differently. Okay, I think there's an investment.
Yeah, regarding influencing thought process, after you have communicated the value, that's all fine. I think the ultimate influence of change will happen when you have shown the results. So you have to maybe try a smaller change and then show the results and then it will trigger a bigger change.
Absolutely. So when you're trying something in a pilot thing, I mean, so it's not about just demonstrating this is how we do tests, and you have to demonstrate how does it translate to the reduction in the bugs or critical bugs. And here is a sample, and if you fix your polite, you're going to get this benefit.
I was saying, again, thought process is very interesting topic, right? We can get the best among our teams by following simple techniques. For example, we try to invent things which are not required all the time. Right? Instead of inventing, you try to do research, try to explore what is already there within your organization, within your teams. Try to get the best among them. Right? Remove that thought process, not to spend too much of time on invention. Invention is required, but not for a daily.
The art of simplicity, in other words, right? So you can even point them to the agile principle, which is sort of the amount of minimizing the work not done. That means how you do less work in a simple manner with your existing tools. Only the thought process, you're thinking about testing, you're thinking about coding can be changed. And for example, we have this clean code work from Uncle Bob. You can recognize Uncle Bob, Rob Martin, Uncle Bob. Clean coding skills talk about tiny things like having meaningful names for the methods and variables. So,
because this is one basic area you see. Our product is very complex. The code we write is very complex. So it is completely different from whatever you have done in the past.
Right.
Now, as an agile, if you tell what is the benefit, what is the value, they will say, that's a GAN.
It's a GAN, and this doesn't apply to our project, our product.
That's a very common statement we use.
So the way I bulldoze that, such statements are, okay, you have a nice trump card with you, right? So keep that trump card away, and let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's talk about what is complex.
Yes.
And
one way I like to do is bring the actual people who did the product, talk about the journey they
sure.
Not
allow them to sit with them, share with them. It's one of the ways of demonstrating, right? Show them how to do it, make it happen, right? In fact, that is one of the ways that we are using. So at the end of it, if you're talking about an individual and influencing the thought process, if you don't show the person what's in it for me, how is it going to help me? For example, you could say you could become an awesome programmer and you could retire as an awesome programmer if you choose to, right? And what do you mean by awesome programmer? Either you could explain or gift in the book. Anyone remembers the book which talks about a good programmer and retiring as a programmer altogether? Software craftsmanship, again from Uncle Bob, right? So it talks about the apprentice of a programmer, a journeyman, and then craftsman, like a goldsmith. You treat your work as a craftsman and retire as a craftsman in programming, right? And that's something which is motivational. You would individually, whether or not the team gets the benefit or whatever, the organization gets the benefit, you would retire as an awesome programmer. I'm just giving you an example, but what's in it for me is really important. And then, okay, I got it. How easy is it to learn or improve it? If it takes a lot of work, a lot of learning, a lot of infrastructure, if it is too complex, I already have a pressure of delivering more and more story, and something even talked about story point velocity. People are already behind us with the velocity, and so how do I create some room for even learning about automation, right? So you have to have simple mechanisms, like someone said. Make it start simple and then evolve. And then, okay, some people would be ready to pull up their socks and they ask me, would this be recognized? Right? Because sometimes you reduce certain technical debt, which will not be accounted anyway, and it will not be recognized. So what are we doing for it, right? How does it translate for the appreciation or recognition or even consideration? If you don't try and address these kind of things, I bet you people would not buy or would not be with you for this journey. And both as individual and people are very good in viral influencing, so the entire team might be demotivated. So, how are you doing?
We're out of time. Taking the mic off?
So this is anyway the last slide. This is the last slide. It's called I think those who attended the Scrum Bangalore couple of sessions before Yeah, he spoke about this. It's a nice book. I've not read it completely, but those 3 powerful messages were good enough for me to relate to whatever experiments I was doing. Right? So, when you are trying to implement in a large scale thing, you will always find a few champions who will be interested, right? The law of the few. Identify those guys and try to motivate them by finding their stickiness factor. And then using them, with the help of them, try and change the surrounding, the context. I think it all started in the morning session, right? If you alter the surrounding, the context, a lot of people will be pulled into it. So this book is about how virus spread and they replicate and things like that. A lot of lessons are applied on influencing the mindset and the thought process. So this could be a good scientific technique for you to do. Although I was doing this intuitively with some other techniques that I learned from co-coaching with other guys. But then I saw a good relevance about the techniques I was using, and this sort of comes as a technique for you. But more than this, like someone said, you have to make it happen. So that's where a coach gets challenged, right? Normally, especially in India, if you go as a coach, by default they'll be expecting you to be a consultant, to give you the solution. And we talk about in the morning that you want to be a coach, not a solution provider. So, as it is harder. When you get into XP coaching, it is even harder. Because until you show how to do it, you can't convince people. And so you have to get in the solution. But what I would say as a one-liner is, you do provide solution, but which are enabling solution. For example, if they have some testing automation tools, enable them to do it in the right way. So maybe you have to extend their framework. So develop such solution and not the actual solutions, how to do it. When you're actual solutioning, that comes into picture, still be a coach. But you can still develop enabling solution. You could probably simplify the way the build is happening. For example, reduce the build cycle time, and I bet you why people don't agree to do pair programming. Right now, it sucks because our build takes like 5 minutes, 2 hours. And I can't afford to check in things. So handle such problems, and then that will clear the way for people to do. So such kind of enabling. But it's about mostly again about coaching, the real coaching and working on the mindset. If you address mindset, rest of the issues would be easier to apart from doing an infrastructure. Okay. I think so that's the last point, and that's it. That's a little bit about me. You can get in touch with me for even finer details on how do you deal with executives, leadership team, how do you get them onto the board when you're trying to guide, because most of the executives want all these things, the fruits, but they're not willing to actually do the hands-on work they need to do in terms of enabling with the right tools and things like that. So how do you get them on board? You can speak to me offline. This is not mine. This is the